Talktainment Radio Worldwide Sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
TalkTainmentRadio.com, we go where you go, the world's greatest radio. You're in touch with the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is radio the way it should be heard for Wednesday, January the 30th, 2019. Our topic today is going to be racial apartheid, probably more emphasis on apartheid. And if you would like to join the conversation, you can by calling 1-877-932-9766. You can also view and hear the program by going to the YouTube channel, type in the word Talktainment, and then you can type in the word radio and scroll down to Talktainment number 2 on YouTube, and you're there. Of course, if you would like to Gmail me with your comments or your questions, you go to the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com, and I will get that. But we would like you to also listen to the program by going to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage, and all you have to do is at the top, just click Listen Live, and it brings you right in here. And while you're there, hit the subscribe and like button. Most of the nation is cold as of this particular broadcast on this Wednesday, January the 30th, so we hope that you are well. On the line, live from Washington, D.C., is Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And Mr. Fuller, how are you today?
I'm still learning.
You are still learning. Okay, it's been a week since we last spoke. Before we get started on the racial apartheid, is there a particular mention that you saw or subject that you saw that you would like to hone in on or make us aware of? Anything in the government or around the world, something that caught your eye? You know, I know you read a lot of publications, newspapers, magazines, anything that just caught your eye that you want to speak to?
Nothing outstanding. Just the general routine things that you expect to be going on in the world, in the system of racism, which is white supremacy. Mm-hmm. Just routine, just the general prison routine. The people who practice white supremacy has made the entire world a prison. Mm-hmm. So, prison activities, for people who are familiar with it, wartime prison, whatever people want to call it, but a prison routine is usually just that, a prison routine. Something very predictable and very well structured. A very well run prison is a smooth operation with very few things that are different from one day to the next. One day blends right into the next day. Once it was established as a smooth running operation, a smooth running death camp, you might say. Once it's established, pretty smooth operation. So it has very few glitches that are outstanding on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, now, in that smoothly run prison or prison system, do you find it not disturbing, but do you find it odd, or what is all this domestic terrorism, whites shooting up other whites? I think there's been, within the last few weeks, there's been 5 separate killings of white people killing white people in this smoothly run system. Is that to be expected?
That's to be expected. That goes with the territory. In fact, just like in any criminal organization, as kind of depicted in the movie The Godfather by a character called Pete Clemenza, talking to one of the young gangsters who is aspiring to come up in the world, in the family business, as they say. And there's a scene where he's talking to Clemenza, that's Michael Corleone, and he said, "How bad is it going to be, Michael?" Pete, that's Michael talking to Clemenza, that's a fellow mobster, a subordinate of his, and he said, "Pretty bad." He said, "We have to do this every 10, 15 years, put the members of the different families, the mob families, the people that control everything when it comes to criminal activity, they go at each other. We are really feasting off of the general population, but every now and then, 10, 15 years, we have a breakdown in how we're going about doing things, arguments among ourselves about how is the best way to proceed into the future. And the arguments sometimes break out into little bits of violence and then break out in all-out violence. And we slaughter each other. But everything finally quiets down and we go back, shake hands, and go back to business as usual. In other words, the wardens of the different branches of the prison system sometimes go at each other. That's to make another analogy. And they actually will kill each other and send out their guards from their respective prison sites, hunting each other down. But eventually, they settle down, make some type of agreement on how to divide up the action of taking advantage of subordinate people, the people that they feast off of, and things kind of level off again for another 10 or 15 years. Now, to make the analogy within a racial framework, we have things like a so-called civil war, where huge numbers of white people who didn't particularly care for black people at all on either side went at each other. I mean, all out. They weren't playing. They weren't pulling any punches. I mean, they went at each other big time and wrote books about it, have reenactments of it even today in 2019, fly flags commemorating how, hey, we went at each other big time. We all believed in white supremacy. Generally speaking, we just didn't like the style or the way that some of the goods from it were being distributed. But I mean, we really did do a job on each other, and we didn't pull any punches. But at the same time, we both kept our eye on all the opposing families now, the criminal organizations, respectively, the prison wardens. They kept their eye on the prisoners, making sure that the prisoners didn't get away or didn't get out of hand while all this fight was going on between the mobs. That's one analogy. Might be kind of raggedy, but I think people understand what I mean by it. And if they don't, they can say so, and I'll try to
Okay. Let's take a phone call before we get into racial apartheid. Caller, you are now on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Mr. Fuller? Yes, sir. Yes, I'm in Detroit, and I found out that a lot of people, a lot of places are giving away food, and a lot of black people lining up different days of the week getting that food. And I was telling them the same thing they did to the Indian, they did. And you don't know when the next time they're going to put whatever they want to put in it to eliminate some of these people. Maybe you think the compensatory action should be should we allow to accept this food, and do we assume that one day that they might put something in that food that is good? Well, they put stuff in the food all the time. I mean, just about everything in the system of white supremacy that is made available to the prisoners, meaning the black people, the non-white people of the world, is artificial. Artificial food, artificial information, artificial everything in all 9 areas of activity. Artificial economics, artificial education, artificial entertainment that is put out here that's very appetizing, lots of sugar on it and all like that, but not anything that will inspire you to do anything that is of any constructive value. That's what the white supremacists do in the field of entertainment. Labor, artificial, except anything that will benefit them. When it comes to anything that's going to benefit the prisoners, the non-white people, the black people, then it's all artificial. They don't get the fruits of their labor. Law, don't even talk about that. You start talking about how the law is used, where black people are concerned, in the system of white supremacy, you got to be joking. If you're talking about correct law, the type of law that produces a thing called justice. Doesn't happen. Can't happen in the system of white supremacy. And then you have politics, another category. All artificial when it comes to people of color. Religion, all confusing. That's a form of artificiality. Anything that causes confusion. The dark-skinned people all over this planet that we call Earth are confused when it comes to the issue of religion. Got a different church on every corner. Not only they don't exactly have combat with each other, even within the Christian religion, but they kind of eye each other warily because they say, well, your brand of Christianity isn't quite up to par like my brand. And so most of the congregation out there, the potential congregation, come over here to where I am. Those people down the road, they're trying, they mean well, but their brand of Christianity, they don't know Jesus like we do. So come over here. And so different churches have different names. And you have, even in the Christian structure, you have what? Something called Protestants and Catholics. Then you break that down by color, like Martin Luther King said, who was here, came into the world in this month, January, a long time ago. Mm-hmm. He said, what's the most segregated hour in the world when it comes to religion? 11 o'clock on Sunday morning in the Northwestern Hemisphere. In churches, when everybody's supposed to be coming together in what? In the body of Christ. But not when it comes to color. Depends on what color you are. That is a time when everybody goes in a different direction, to a different church. White people will move into a neighborhood that has a church right down the street, 4 doors away from this fancy apartment that's going up. They will look at that church, they'll check it out, and they'll say, oh, this is a fine church. But looks like the people who are going in there got some color in their skin.
Mm-hmm.
So that's no place for me. I'm a white person. I mean, that brand of religion that they got, who needs that? Who wants that? What good is that to me? I can't use none of that. That's a bunch of garbage. I'm not going into a garbage pile. That's all that is for me. I have no use for it. But it works for them. But they're garbage people. So I guess it's okay. You know, I'll send them a donation. Might even take a little food down there. But their brand of religion, they can't do nothing for me. I got a better brand. Comes white all the way. So I'm going to seek out the church that I used to go to if I have to drive 15 miles. When there's the same type of church with the same name, just 3 doors away from my apartment building. You see it. I don't think I'm making that up. And then you got sex, artificial sex all over the place, and growing at a gallop. Every type of artificiality that you can think of. They must have really put their feet on the desk and got real comfortable and burned a whole lot of midnight oil in order to come up with all of these growing categories of sexuality that they're dumping on the non-white people of the world and just laughing all the way while they do it. And say and telling black people, telling the non-white people, you don't really need a better education. You don't need a better anything. What you need is to improve your sexuality. It's all messed up. I mean, you can't get along with your girlfriend. I mean, black males are beating up black females, I mean, over and over again, and we have to come in and stop the beating and whatnot. What you need is a new sexuality. Maybe 10 or 15 different types of sexuality. You need some, not this male-female thing, that's old stuff. You need some new artificial sexuality that we will manufacture for you. We will even manufacture some sex toys to go along with it. And you can come into the store and purchase it off the shelf, at a price, of course, which we will charge you. You know. And, well, get it started. Start off cheap, and then escalate the bill as decades pass by, generations pass by, until we have completely confused you, like we have in all areas of activity, like religion, and like economics. And then, of course, the 9th area of activity, war. Now, the war is artificial, too, in that we are pretending always that when we are fighting and we get you to fight, it's all about helping you to be a better person and to be in a better position. But all of the fighting that is going on, all of the dark-skinned people who are carrying AK-47s all over the world, that's a part of what the white supremacists call fighting for your freedom. It doesn't pay off at all because it's an endless fight that they say is an endless fight. Well, fighting for freedom is endless, you know. You got to always be fighting, killing other non-white people, of course, and the other non-white people killing you, because I furnish the arms for both sides, because the white supremacists are always successful, because they know how to play all sides of every argument.
Alrighty, TalkTameRadio.com is a 24/7 no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news and lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here's one that I'm going to share with you, and it's called New Money. And I came in this morning and saw where Drew and Janae took care of business, and it's all typed up and and keyed up and ready to go. So you might want to check that out. New money and the way things is going, you might need some of that. All you have to do is go to the talktainradio.com homepage, click on programs for the scheduled times. And when you see that, you'll see other shows that are there that we carry. TalkTainmentRadio.com, that's radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby. I'm the co-host of The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And our topic, when we get to it, is racial apartheid. And if you'd like to join the conversation with your comments on that or any other suggestions that you may have, then you can call at 1-877-932-9766. Before we go into that, let's take this phone call. Okay, caller, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question, please?
How you doing today, Mr. Fuller? This is Mr. Eric Mitchell coming out of Cleveland, Ohio. I'm still learning. I am too as well. Mr. Fuller, with the political process and elections getting ready to come up, do you have any codified questions that non-white people, good codified questions that non-white people can ask political candidates?
Yes, just ask for justice. I mean, and be very specific about what you're talking about in the process. Get away from the slogans. Go in, if you're talking to anybody who's a politician, go in with a list of things, always. Just don't go in with abstractions and say, well, we black people would like to have our freedom. We'd like to have better neighborhoods. We'd like to have better schools. These are titles. That's an excellent start. But you have to be specific. In my school, I want this to be taught. So that when I walk out of that school with a piece of paper in my hand saying that I have graduated, I want to know exactly what I'm going to be doing with at least this first part of my existence. What are the opportunities available to me where I can walk in a door and present my diploma, my degree, and say, this is what I have learned, and I understand that in this place where I am now, I can use what I have learned in this place where they have sent me as of this morning, because I was in that university day before yesterday. I took a day off to rest. Now I'm coming in ready to go to work in this place, because this is the place where I can use what they taught me in that university down the street. And I'm in this place where I knew that this is the place that I was going to come to so I can make money to take care of all the things that I am required to take care of in a constructive manner. I can gain that money here by giving my services to this facility, because I knew about this facility before I ever left that university, because that's the kind of university it is. It doesn't teach you just a whole bunch of stuff and tell you to go out into the world and change it, and you don't have an idea of how to even get started anywhere. Not a name, not a phone number, not an address, not an idea of where you can use USE, what you have been taught.
Yes.
Did that answer the question, or
yeah, the caller is gone, but that is it really did answer the question. Okay, let's do this. We're going to talk about racial apartheid. Now, I have become familiar with apartheid and what happened in South Africa, my first recollection of it, but as I began to see things around here, it made me wonder if that same thing was practiced here. And the word apartheid means apartness. Racial segregation had been used for centuries, but when the new policy started in 1948,
in South Africa, it was strict and more systematic. In the system, the people of South Africa were divided by race, and the races were forced to live apart from each other. Mr. Fuller, with racial apartheid, or that term anyway, that's been scattered around, do you see the white supremacists classifying and separating blacks based on color, a dark-skinned black versus a light-skinned black, and so forth and so forth, all the gambit of colors? Do you see that as something that is prevalent in today's society?
Always has been. In fact, there are categories that they use that are not in the census, by the way, but in general conversation, what do you hear? Black people and brown people. And most black people are brown. Now, how much confusion can you get? Usually when they refer to brown people, they're talking about what? They're talking about people not of color. Because the people are brown in color, a lot of them are tan, a very dark brown, a very light brown. But they're talking about people who speak a language. That language is not a color. That language is Spanish. But they'll say the people who speak Spanish are the brown people. Oh, well, take a look. Some of them are. Some of them are not. Some of them, just like among what we call black people, look like white people. Just like among black people. See how the white supremacists just go behind the bushes and just laugh at what they have pulled on the world? Because they call anything by anything. They'll say anything. There's nothing that they won't say. They'll say, oh, blue is green today. And people say, well, where did you get that? So, because I said so. That's all they do. Because I said so. Blue is green today. Now, all you people of color, line up and repeat after me. And all the people of color throughout the entire system of white supremacy, as long as it's been established, have a tendency to just start nodding their heads in unison without anybody stepping back, which is what counter-racist science is all about, and say, wait a minute, I know what I'm looking at, and you're trying to tell me that I don't see what I'm looking at. I know the difference between brown and yellow. I know the difference between white and green. I know the difference between orange and purple, I think. But the white supremacists will say, oh, no, that was yesterday. You got it all wrong. Now, that's what apartheid was all about. It was just the same old thing with a different word attached to it. That's all they have ever done. Same stuff. The same stuff in different cans, you might say. If you want to compare it to beans or canned groceries and whatnot. The same stuff with a different can and a different label. And they come up with all kinds of labels to describe the same thing. Okay. And they do this all the time.
All the time. Okay, I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is Radio the Way It Should Be Heard. The phone number to get in contact with the show is 1-877-932-9766. And our main topic today is racial apartheid. But right now we're going to take a phone call. Caller, you are now on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Mr. Fuller, this is Reggie from Charlotte, North Carolina. Mr. Fuller, I was recently approached by, publicly in a parking lot by another black male, and his question to me was, brother, what's your nationality? And I didn't know what angle he was coming from. I thought maybe he, thought I was a foreigner or something. So I just simply said, I just asked him, well, what do you mean by nationality? And he went on to tell me what he thought my nationality was based on his religious views. So I just sit there, listen to him, and then we departed. So I thought about that later. So my question to you is simply, what is the codified response to the question, what is your nationality?
Yes. Well, when a person asks you a question and you don't understand what the question is, you did the correct thing. That's the codified response. You did exactly what the response should be. And that is, you ask him, you use the very words that whomever the person is, the words that that person is using. You get that person in a polite, courteous manner to explain what the word means. You did the correct thing. That's the codified response. That's right on point. What do you mean by nationality, sir? And don't help with the answer, because you might have ideas yourself about what the answer may be, but that person is talking to you and using the term, so you want that person's definition of the term. That's whether the person is white, non-white, male, female, whatever. Always ask about the terms that that person is using, regardless of what you think the term may mean. You just simply say, and you did the correct thing. What do you mean by nationality? What was the person's response when you asked that question? Do you remember?
Yes. Well, he just went on to tell me, instead of answering my question, like what country are you from or whatever, he went on to say, well, you know, you should be this, you should be this. He went to a religious aspect. Like, it's like he wanted me to say something and say, oh, nope. I guess he wanted me to say, hey, I'm American. Say, no, you're not American, you're this. Like, so he was looking to retaliate based on my response, but I think I caught him off guard by just, you know, asking him the question back to him. But his response was, brother, we are, you know, members of the lost tribe and this and that. And I just sat there and listened to him.
That was the correct procedure. Now,
okay,
and you always do it with an approach of being courteous and just listening to what the person has to say. The person has something to tell you, so you just listen to what the person is telling you, and you said that the person said what he had to say and then walked off. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's the way it's supposed to work, because it's never supposed to get into an argument. It's never. Okay. Black people have to stop arguing with each other or with anybody, really. That should be, in 2019, no more arguments of any kind, because arguments don't produce what? Constructive results. Conversations do. There's a difference between an argument and a conversation. A conversation produces a constructive result every time. An argument does not produce a constructive result. So how do you avoid arguments? Simply by asking questions and listening to answers. And don't say anything. Don't give your opinion about anything. That's one of the best ways. Don't give your opinion about what the person is saying. Just listen. And when they finish, say thank you very much. And that's it. You didn't have an argument. You listened to what the person is saying.
Mm-hmm.
You understood what the person is saying. And whether you agreed or not, you don't have to say anything. And that's the magic of just asking a question. What do you mean by nationality? And then let the person, just like you did. That's the correct procedure. I hope everybody picks that up. That's the correct procedure. Why? Because in counter-racist science, what does it say? All problems are solved through the process of what?
Questions and answers.
You asked the question. First of all, he asked you a question. What is your nationality? And then you asked him a question because you wanted clarity. That's the first thing you want in any conversation. Not to lead to an argument. You want clarity. So in order to clear that up, you said, what do you mean by nationality? And then the person proceeded to tell you what he meant by nationality. So you just listen. And then when he walks away, what you do is evaluate what that conversation was about and see if you found anything in it that was constructive. And if you did, use it. And if you didn't, dismiss it as not being of any constructive value to you, at least at this time. That's it.
Okay.
And you'll never have an argument. I mean, you hear black people having arguments in subway stations. I mean, arguments all over the place. That should be something that in 2019 is unheard of. We should look at the science of avoiding arguments.
Yes, sir. Okay, TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. You are now listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. And our discussion today is racial apartheid. But it is at this particular time, usually 45 minutes after the hour, that we present Mr. Fuller with an opportunity to discuss the book. Mr. Fuller, this is your time to discuss the book, so take it away.
A lot of the things that I'm talking about right now are in the book. That's why I wrote the book. The Compensatory Counter-Racist Code. Textbook, workbook for thought, for speech, and or action for victims of racism. And of course, racism is described singularly. I mean, just by that word, singularly, that means just one thing, one type of racism, and that's white supremacy. Why? Because you can't have two supremes in the same space. I mean, when you say one thing is supreme, that automatically says there's none other. So if you're talking about racism and racial supremacy, you're talking about white supremacy. There's no such thing as non-white supremacy in a white supremacy system. They can't occupy the same space. So what is white supremacy? It's two things, two elements. Dominating and mistreating people who are classified as non-white by people who are classified as white and who function as white. Dominating and mistreating, those two elements, that's what it's for. Dominating and mistreating, how? When? Where? Answer, all the time, in all 9 areas of activity. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Worldwide, 24/7, without let up. Anybody who is classified as non-white, black, brown, red, yellow, beige, tan, any of the derivatives of blackness come under the system of white supremacy, according to the white supremacists, and they have proven that this is a fact. And the evidence shows it. So the textbook that I have written is for the victims of this system, because this system should not exist. The system that should exist is a system of peace. It's based on truth plus justice plus correctness. That's the equation. That equals peace. First you gotta have truth, then you gotta have justice, then you have correctness, which means you treat everything correctly. Justice is you treat people correctly. Truth is you reveal whatever is. The definition is in the textbook of truth is that which is. That which is what? That which is what it is. It's not something else. Call things by their correct name based on what it does or what it exists for. You have to find that in everything. Now the textbook for victims of white supremacy is for victims of this thing called racism. And it's addressed to the individual person. And it's supposed to tell you, or make suggestions rather, about what to do, what to say, each and every day, under every circumstance. What to do and what to say. What to not do and what to not say. In all of these areas of activity. That's what the book is designed to help an individual person do who is a victim of racism. And you can get it by going to producejustice.com. You can get the book. And there's a word guide that will help you with the word part, what to say and what not to say, what questions to ask. Like somebody saying, what's your nationality? All right? How do you respond? The book is supposed to guide you. Are you an American? What is an American? What does an American do that nobody else does? What's the difference between an American and an All-American? That's in the Word Guide, which is an addition to the basic book. Okay? And is there a difference between an American and an All-American? How many Americans are there? What is an American? In every area of activity, 24 hours a day. Do Americans exist? What's an African? What's an Asian? What is justice? Words are supposed to mean something. Every word. And you're supposed to be able to understand every word that is spoken to you so that you don't have what? Confusion. Because from confusion comes disaster in any type of frame of reference. That's been proven all down through the world. Anytime you find a whole bunch of confused people, you either deconfuse that situation or get somebody to do it, or you get out of that situation, because confusion is going to lead to disaster. That's a guarantee. No people who are confused are going to be constructively engaged. Now, the textbook for victim of white supremacy, I repeat again, you can get by going to producejustice.com. Producejustice.com. And hopefully you'll find something in the basic textbook and the additional to it called the Word Guide that will help to deconfuse you about everything that's going on in this world that's dominated by the system of white supremacy.
Alrighty, there you have it, producejustice.com. As we move along, today's topic is racial apartheid. If you would like to join the conversation, you can by calling 1-877-932-9766 to either have a question and have Mr. Fuller address your question with suggestions. Mr. Fuller, before we go on here, are you familiar with the Berlin Conference of 1884-1885?
Vaguely. I've forgotten about the details of it. Just about all of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, apparently it was by he pulled together Otto von Bismarck of Germany, where the European nations, the big European nations, had apparently got together and decided on how to divvy up Africa. In fact, King Leopold II was very instrumental in doing things in the Congo. In fact, it has another name called the Congo Conference also. But I found it very interesting to see how Africa was divvied up into the various countries that it is now, because the Europeans were interested in colonization, and I thought I would throw that out there, and I'm glad that you were familiar with it, because I haven't been familiar with it until about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and I looked it up, and it's quite an interesting read, the Berlin Conference. So by me saying that little bit, did that stir your memory up of some information that you had on that?
Oh, yes, sir. Well, definitely. The minute you mentioned it, that it was about dividing up the territories like any gangster operation. Gangster operations at that Godfather level, what do? They divide up territories. The Italians will have a piece of this action. Barzini will have a piece of that action. The Corleones will have a piece. And Tessie over here, he'll have a piece. If you're familiar with the movie Godfather, which I keep referring to, and which I keep seeing on television all the time, because there's plenty of messages in that.
Yes.
Godfather 1 and 2, those two movies are of Shakespearean, I say, longevity. I mean, in other words, they can teach that in school, replacing maybe some of the Shakespeare that they teach. And particularly among black people, because a lot of young black people want to be gangsters anyway, so they can relate to something like The Sopranos and The Godfather, but it will show that the system of white supremacy that governs them and their behavior, they are victims of this type of system, this gangster system at the top level, called the system of white supremacy. It operates just like the Corleones and the Barzinas and the Italians and the rest of those people that were named in Godfather 1 and 2. Hyman Roth and all of them, Johnny Ola, the senator that was bought off. Everybody was paying off, and they making these excellent speeches and whatnot about this and that and the other, and shaking hands and whatnot, and taking money under the table, and doing all kinds of other things that in his so-called leadership position.
Sounds like today, doesn't it? Sounds
just like today, even though the movies were made in 1972, 1974. But that was happening before then, and it's been happening ever since. So you don't pay any attention to these titles either. Just watch what people do. Don't be fascinated by anybody's title.
Yes.
And this is important for black people. Get out of that habit. I don't care how many titles a person has in front of his or her name or behind his or her name. Pay attention to what's being done. That's the only thing that counts.
Yes. And in looking at that, and I'm so happy that you knew about the Berlin Conference, because I did, and I still study that and go back to understand how white supremacy, racism works even more because of what they did to those people in there, particularly King Leopold of Belgium, King Leopold II, excuse me, of Belgium, and the hacking of hacking off of arms and limbs and so forth. It was just I couldn't believe that kind of stuff happened, but it did.
I've been seeing photographs of that back in the 1930s.
Wow. Okay. I see, and I just recently, I'll say within the last 2 or 3 years, have seen the photographs of children maimed, a handgun.
They didn't make the quota.
Yeah, because they didn't make the quota. I think it was gold or rubber or whatever.
Rubber.
Yeah.
Rubber, mostly. Just about everything. So in the Congo, even today, that's why the white supremacists don't want anybody going in there but them. As always, because that's a real harvester. The Congo is an excellent place to get all kinds of material that can be used all over the world. And you better believe the white supremacists are not going to concede 1 inch of it without a whole bunch of bloodshed against anyone non-white who tries to get anything out of Congo.
Why, in your opinion, Mr. Fuller, was that not mentioned, but when the so-called Jews over in Germany were killed, that was mentioned more than this tragedy, which, according to the records that I have seen, was over 10 million people that were killed in the Congo?
Well, I'll put it this way.
Okay.
When we start talking about it. The history of white supremacy. It will never, ever, ever be told, because there's no way for it to ever, ever, ever be known by anybody who's breathing now. There's no way for that history
say that?
Because it just wasn't recorded, most of it. Most of it was never put down on paper. I mean, and that includes the so-called slave trade, I mean, transatlantic slave. The history of the plantations will never, ever be told. All of the horrible things that went on, year after year, decade after decade. Not for a few years, 4 or 5 years. I mean, some type of horrendous mistreatment of people. I'm talking about maybe as much as a couple of 1,000 years of non-stop brutality, each and every day, bloodshed, brutality, beatings, killings of every type. I mean, male, female, infants, throwing of babies into the ocean and whatnot for fun, black babies. The white supremacists doing that and thinking nothing of it, and having a swig of beer behind it, rum or whatever, and just having a party. In Australia, just running down the so-called Aborigines and shooting them like rabbits. I mean, hey, just having fun. Just the good old boys. Forever. Having fun. Doing what? Mistreating people of color on a horrendous scale. Non-stop. Day after day. Never no let up. Like I looked at what? I turned on my TV, just flipped the channel yesterday. It's always there. And what was showing? Showboat. All right? And right in the middle of Showboat, it went right back to 1951, the black character in the movie, which is really the central part of the movie, singing what? Old Man River. You and me, we sweat and strain. Body all aching, racked with pain. Tote that barge, lift that bale. Get a little drunk and your land's in jail.
Okay, I gotta leave it there for the first time, Mr. Fuller. Talk to him at radio.com, the world's greatest radio, radio the way it should be heard. Stay tuned for the second hour, and we're going to start off with Showboat.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Talktainment Radio worldwide now. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
TalkTainmentRadio.com, you go where you go, the world's greatest radio. You are in touch with The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am the co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is Radio the Way It Should Be Heard. Our topic today is racial apartheid in this system of white supremacy racism. Mr. Fuller will answer your questions. We also will listen to your VGQ. And you can do all that by calling 1-877-932-9766. If you choose to view the program, you can do that by going to the YouTube channel. Type in the word Talktainment, and then you will type in the word radio, and then scroll down to Talktainment number 2, and you're there. Hit the subscribe and like button while you're there also. If you'd like to Gmail me with your questions that I may get a chance to read, maybe not, you can do so by the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. And this way also, we would like for you to listen to our program by going to the TalkToMeRadio.com homepage and hit listen live. Boom! You hit that bad boy, and you're right there. Hit the subscribe and like button there. Okay, racial apartheid. Mr. Fuller, we ended the last hour. You were speaking or making reference to the movie Showboat, and then you were going on a certain piece of that. You can continue with that if you would like.
Well, I was just talking about the lyrics in the song.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, written by some white people who observed it and called it what it was. They told the truth. Lift that barge, tote that bale, get a little drunk, and you land in jail. And then another part of the song, sung by a black person, back in what we call the slavery days, which has never basically changed. It's just a continuation of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I get weary and sick of trying, tired of living, and scared of dying. But that old man river, he just keeps rolling along.
Mm.
In other words, here's a black person who is a slave looking from a boat that's designed to entertain the white supremacists of that era and whatnot. But he's got to do all the heavy lifting, all of the work, keep the boat going, and lift the barge and tote the bale. And as he looks out at the river, he says to himself, I guess, that's the heart of the song, Old Man River.
Old Man River.
I kind of wished I was like that river. Rather than be a person here where I am, I'd like to be a drop of some of that water. It just keeps on rolling along and don't have to answer to nobody. In fact, water does what it wants to do.
So
which he was saying, and I don't do nothing that I want to do.
So Showboat. Wow. I never thought of it that way. That's very good. Let's go to the phone lines. Carter, you are on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Hi. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. This is Lakeisha. I talked to you before about my evaluation. I submitted the investigation to the Department of Education, and they contacted me and said, basically the investigator says if there was something a violation, and they asked me if I wanted to withdraw my complaint. I wanted to ask you, why do you think that they would ask me to withdraw it when they already determined that they were in fault? Why would they want me to withdraw the complaint? Investigation.
I don't know. What did they ask you to do?
They asked me if I wanted to withdraw the investigation.
No, you don't withdraw investigations until the investigation is closed. The whole point for opening any investigation is to come to a conclusion. Has anybody come to a conclusion? Have you been told that someone came to a conclusion other than you being asked to withdraw the investigation?
Right, they said that they have to put it in writing by February 6th. But as of right now, they can tell me that, yes, they are in fault, like they were in violation. But they asked me if I wanted to withdraw my complaint.
Well, like I've always told people, never make a complaint. Just ask for an investigation. Don't make a complaint about anything on the job. Ask for an investigation. And stay there. Don't move from that investigation thing. You make an inquiry, and that's asking people to investigate, but you don't do the investigating. And once you ask for an investigation, you want the investigation to come to a conclusion, and that conclusion be given in writing. Always.
Yes, sir.
You want your response in writing, whatever the conclusion is. And then if you are not satisfied with the conclusion, you ask for an investigation of the conclusion. If you see fit to do so. It's a continuing thing. You never cut off an investigation.
Okay, Mr. Fuller, let me ask you a question. Why, in your opinion, would they ask her if she wanted to terminate the investigation? Now, that I don't get.
I don't either. But the way, what does the code say? The way to solve all problems, and this is a problem, is to ask questions. So, if you ask a question and you don't get the correct answer, or a constructive answer, or a satisfactory answer, then the process is what? Ask another question. All right? No. In other words, and if you ask a question, you answer the question. Why don't you do you want to drop the investigation? The answer is no. I never want to drop an investigation. I want a conclusion to an investigation. What's the point in starting something, and then stopping what you started?
Yes.
No, you always come to a conclusion.
They wanted me to stop it so they wouldn't have to put it in writing. They said if I don't stop it, then it will definitely go in writing. They have to put it in writing within 60 days, which will be February 6th.
They said they were going to do what?
They asked me to stop it because if I don't stop it, it will go in writing because they only have 60 days from the start of the investigation.
What will go in writing?
The results of the investigation, which finds them in fault.
Oh, well then, if you don't like what you get as a result, because that's what you are seeking, their result, then you call for an investigation of the investigation. That's the procedure. If you don't agree with the conclusion.
Is she protected by any laws that she can actually ask for an investigation on the investigation?
Well, you always start an investigation in the Northwestern Hemisphere by, first of all, mentioning that you are calling for an investigation based on either the 5th or the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, or a combination of both. You should become familiar with those two amendments to the Constitution, because in the Northwestern Hemisphere, in a court of law, in my opinion, that's all that you have. You have nobody on your side. You have nobody who is in favor of you. You can't depend on anything but some words on the paper. Because if you're depending on people, you can just about conclude that it's not going to happen. Because there's a thing called justice that's supposed to be, available. Well, according to the system, the counter-racist codified system, there's no such thing as justice in the system of white supremacy. So you always assume that's the system you're under. You're not under any other system. But the only thing you have going for you that the white supremacists going way back to the 1700s will allow is a thing called the Constitution in the Northwestern Hemisphere. So you use it because you have a duty to use it. And you have a duty to use it and use it and use it and never stop using it. Why? You never give up. Because that's the only other alternative you have. And when you give up, then they just say, whomever they are, friend or foe, will say, well, you gave up. You decided to call off the investigation.
Right.
You decided.
Right.
No, you don't want to ever be on record of deciding ever to stop an investigation of what you perceive to be non-justice.
So the fifth...
that is a duty. That's not an option.
So the 5th and the 14th Amendments of the United States Constitution limit the power of the federal and states government?
No, it doesn't limit anything. It opens all the doors according to what we have been told. That's what I was told. It opens all the doors. The doors to what? To justice. That's the only thing that's the only keys that you got. You're not given any other keys. Now, all of the amendments are supposed to work, but those are two keys that fit many, many, many locks. So we have been told. Now, if they don't work, nothing will work. That's all you have. You don't have any friends at all. Mm-hmm. Forget anybody caring anything about you personally. Period.
Okay, well, now it says here that the Fifth Amendment says to the federal government that no one shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The 14th Amendment says, ratified in 1868, uses the same 11 words called the Due Process Clause to describe a legal obligation of all states. So that's
what we've been told, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
So that
means that that's all you have.
Okay.
But you don't have anything else. The one thing you don't have, if you're a person of color on this planet, you don't have any reliable friends. Mm-hmm. Forget that. So you can only use what the white supremacists will allow you to have. If they don't want you to have it, that means one thing. In the system of white supremacy, you're not going to get it.
Now, what happens if they don't grant her the under the direction of due process, the 14th and the 5th and the 14th Amendment? What happens then?
I've said it over and over again. In the system of white supremacy, when the white supremacists speak, that's what supreme means. You're finished.
Wow.
You're a prisoner of war. We can't forget that. I want every black person to understand that. I mean, the only thing you can get as a prisoner of war is somebody who's sympathetic to you, who has power, and that will have to be somebody who believes in white supremacy. The white people who don't believe in white supremacy have no power, and they are proving it. How have they proven it? Because the white supremacists are white supremacists. So you wouldn't have such a thing as white supremacy if the white people who didn't believe in white supremacy had more power than the white people who do believe in white supremacy. We wouldn't be having this conversation, or we wouldn't even have this program, because this program would be completely unnecessary.
Wow. Caller, what have you decided that you're going to do?
My other question was, what do I do about retaliation? Now that I'm in the midst of the investigation, if I receive retaliation, what do I do?
You call for an investigation. You consistently call for an investigation of whatever is happening to you that should not be happening. And you always use the 5th and the 14th Amendment approaches, because that's all that you have. Don't ever think you have any friends in the system of white supremacy. System of white supremacy does not allow friendship. That's of constructive value for non-white people. They simply don't allow it. They allow something that looks like it, but that's not what it is.
Okay. Very interesting call, and thank you, caller, for that. Very interesting. TalkTimeRadio.com is a 24/7, no-charge, worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here's one that I'm going to share with you that I did mention in the first hour, and that is called New Money. And when I came in this morning, I saw where Drew and Janae got that bad boy all ready to go, and it's going to drop on their next showtime. As a matter of fact, for any shows that we have, you can go to the TalkTimeRadio.com homepage, click on programs for the scheduled times, and a little bio on them. Talktainment Radio, radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Our topic is racial apartheid, but as usual, Mr. Fuller will answer your questions that don't necessarily have to deal with racial apartheid. Let's see here. 1-877-932-9766 is the number you can call, and we have a caller right now. Okay, caller, go ahead with your question for Mr. Fuller.
Good morning. This is James calling from North Carolina. Mr. Fuller, I have recently viewed documentaries regarding the alleged Zionist conspiracy to dominate and control all non-Jewish people on the planet. The people making accusations against the so-called Zionists appear to be classified as white, as are the Zionists themselves. They further charge that there are global elite Jewish people who view themselves as being members of a distinct superior race who were granted by God dominion over all other people who are white and non-white. What is your perspective regarding the dynamic of how some white people are accusing other white people of being the supreme practitioners of racism and responsible for not only their problems, but the problems of all other people, and also say they're essentially practicing apartheid?
I don't know anything about it. I read about it, I hear about it, I don't understand anything about it. So, because what I have observed is that there is a system of white supremacy. And if you can replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice, it will take care of all of that. That's the equation. That's what I believe. Now, I hear all about all this different stuff. I mean, branches of this and branches of that, and the different departments under the system of white supremacy. And I say that this can get to be very confusing, just like all these color classifications that you have in the census. 21 of them. None of them making sense. Not one. The way that they're arranged and everything, and the words that they use to describe it, and the sexual classifications that keep adding on now. All of this, and it's the same thing when it comes to religion. That's the best of my understanding. When you start talking about Jews, I understand that's a religion. So I am, according to the code, to keep it simple, you oppose to only one religion if you're a person of color. That makes it right to the point. And there's only one religion that really counts on the planet anyway when it comes to being practiced. A religion that's the people who practice this religion really practice this religion. They don't cut corners. They don't do a whole lot of fancy modifications. They're not hypocritical, which is the main thing. And that is the religion of white supremacy. All right? So all other religions are minor runner-ups. I don't care what kind of religion it is. When it comes to competing with the religion of white supremacy. All the evidence shows this. No religion is more powerful. Judaism, Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, any of the tribal religions that most people never heard of which there are many hundreds. None of them show any muscle when it comes to competing with or comparing with the religion of white supremacy. That's a religion. And the people who practice the religion of white supremacy are not hypocrites when it comes to practicing their religion. They practice every part of it. There's no part of their religion they don't practice. But lots of people who call themselves Christians or Hindus or Jews or Muslims, sometimes you'll see them cut corners on their own religion. See, nobody, for the most part, there are some religions that force you to practice the religion, but you can't watch everybody all the time and whatnot. But there are a lot of people who profess
that they have a religion, but you can't have something that you don't practice. There are millions of people who say, I'm a Catholic, for instance, but I don't practice it. Now that's absurd, and that doesn't make any sense at all. That's why I'm saying when you start talking about religious matters, it really gets confusing. Because how can you be something that you don't do? I'm a carpenter, but I don't do any woodwork. I'm a bus driver, but I don't drive a bus. I'm an airplane pilot, but I don't go nowhere near no airplanes.
What proof do you have to back up what all that you just said?
Because the proof is when the people say themselves. I only go by what the people say. They'll say, my religion requires me to do this, and this. Never tell a lie. That's what a person will say. They say, well, where did you get that? Not never telling a lie. Because my religion says that I shouldn't. I shouldn't bear a false witness. And then that person will tell a lie. Right there in the grocery store, selling you something. Jack up the price and say he didn't do it. He called himself exactly what he was that he said he wasn't. That means you ain't practicing your religion. But the white supremacists, when they say they do something, or when they believe something, like kicking black people around, you better believe they're going to kick black people around, because that's what they do. See, that's white supremacist religion. That's what I mean when they say that they're going to mistreat black people, they're going to mistreat black people. You better believe that. They're going to do that. They're going to do that anywhere they go, anywhere in the world, any time of day or night. They'll find a way to do it, because they're going to practice their religion. They're not going to let up. They're the only people who are like that when it comes to this thing called religion and answer to the person's questions. Most people are a little bit hypocritical about their religions.
Go ahead, James.
Yes, sir. But Mr. Fuller, I know racists practice the religion of white supremacy by lying. But is it written somewhere, or is it somehow understood among races that they are supposed to lie and just always lie? I mean,
Well, the racists will say, I never lie. But that's a part of their religion, saying that you never lie when you're lying when you say that.
I'm saying that, is it understood among people who identify themselves as racist when they're in each other's presence? Do they discuss things like, we're supposed to lie? We're supposed to lie. Are they saying those things perhaps behind closed doors, Are they saying, hey, we have got to absolutely deceive all of our victims?
Yeah, you have to deceive your victims. Anybody who is going to victimize anybody in an efficient manner has to use deception on a long-term basis. Now, if you don't deceive people, if you just upfront with people all the time, you tell the truth and all like that, then that matter is going to be settled real fast, all right? And a person cannot misuse a person for a long period of time without using deception. So the white supremacists are the masters of deceit. In answer to that question. But I might have kind of deviated from your original question because you were talking about Zionists and Jews and all like that. Now, here's what I must say this, because that's a touchy subject all over the world for some reason. And that is when people start talking about Jews. So I always say, if you're going to talk about Jews, first thing you want to know, or if you're going to talk about Jews, and it's another word that's associated with Jews, and that is Semite. And another word, a term called anti-Semite, or anti-Semitism. Have you heard those terms?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, so I say, for non-white people of the planet, just like one of the callers called in earlier and said something about what's your nationality. When you start talking about Jews, Zionism, anti-Semitism, Semitism, the procedure according to the code is you ask the person who is talking what these words mean and what they don't mean. All right? But here's what. The first thing that you ask, getting into the question mode, are you a Jew, sir or ma'am? And if the person is not a Jew and identifies him or herself as a Jew, then you don't talk about anybody or the Jewish situation with anybody, because this is what I found the best way to go. Codification is about the best way to go with anything. If you want to find out about anything about Jewishness or Zionism, you have to be talking to a Zionist or a Jew. That's the procedure. I don't ask anybody about Jews. And I recommend this for everybody in the world, unless I'm talking to a Jew. A person who says, I am a genuine Jew. You want to know about Jews? Ask me. Yes, sir. I heard what you said. Yes, ma'am. I heard what you said. So now I have some questions. Because you have answered the first questions I need to know. Because otherwise, if I start saying anything, it might lead to something that will just get in my way of solving the system of white supremacy. I'm going to get more confusion. And some people might lead me down that road. I don't want more confusion. So really, that would apply to anybody of any religion. If a person asks me specifically about a person who is supposed to be a Christian, I want to talk to that particular Christian. That person who says, I'm a real Christian. I'm not a phony. I'm a real Christian. So anything you want to know about Christianity and what it's all about, ask me. Don't ask nobody else. So that's the person I want to talk to.
All righty, we got to leave it there in the system of white supremacy, racism. And if you'd like to join the conversation, you can at 1-877-932-9766. Mr. Fuller, in the word guide, if you have that with you, could you go to page 17 of the word guide, and then we'll, at the top of that. Are you there yet?
Yes.
No, not your caller. I'll get to you in just a sec. Mr. Fuller?
I'm on page 17 of the word guide.
At the top, you gave an explanation of apartheid. This is why people should have the word guide. Could you read that so we can continue on in our discussion?
Apartheid.
Yeah.
In the word guide, page 17. Apartheid, according to the compensatory counter-racist codified word guide, which I wrote, this is just my definition, my spin on it. It says what? Do not use this word except to explain it as having the same meaning as the term white supremacy and racism. I'm going to repeat that again. Do not use this word. What word? Apartheid. Except to explain it as having the same meaning as the term white supremacy. Use the words white supremacy in place of the word apartheid. In other words, just don't use the term at all. When other people can use it, but when you hear apartheid, just say white supremacy. Mm-hmm. That keeps it real simple. Apartheid people, might be all over the place. Apartheid, like right here on this program. What's apartheid? Some people never even heard the word. Okay? But a lot of people may have heard the word white supremacy. So you use that.
Yeah, and the reason...
White supremacy, I have found, is almost magic.
Yes.
I mean, people get real nervous when you say, well, what about white supremacy? Anybody got anything to say about white supremacy? Say that in any forum, and people get nervous, black people and white people.
Mm-hmm. And
you don't believe it, try it.
And you gave a specific reason right underneath that. Could you read that there before we go on? Mm-hmm.
Do not use the word apartheid. Use the word white supremacy. And the reason is, according to compensatory counter-racist logic, and I'm reading this,
yes,
the word apartheid is a refined and confusing term that is designed or intended to be used to mean the same as the term white supremacy, but without directly appearing to do so. So the white supremacists just came up with another word for white supremacy, another term, and said, we won't call it white supremacy because that's too controversial. I bet you that's what they said in a talk among themselves when they invented that term apartheid. All right? They'll say, hey, that sounds like we're mistreating somebody if you say white supremacy. So we're not going to call ourselves white supremacists. We're going to say that we're white people and those people over there are black people, and we are going to have a system that will benefit both black and white, and we will call it apartheid. I think that's how that might have happened. May not have happened exactly that way, but it did come out that way.
Yes, sir.
That's self-evident.
Okay, so now we have a clear definition. Okay, caller, you are on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question, please?
Yeah, Mr. Fuller, we're going by a Fuller code, and they still killing us and murdering us everywhere we stand, everywhere we live, everywhere we stay. And how can we even try to put a dent into it?
And so, what's your question?
The question is, if we go by this code, and they go by the code killing us, how can we win?
If we are going by a code, if they are going by a code,
by the Fuller code.
No, it's not Fuller's code. I mean, I hope that it's the logical code. Logic means...
Well, Fuller created the code, right?
Yeah, and I just put the words in place to describe what I think is already here. It's not really built around Neely Fuller. In other words, I like to think that what I have written is mathematical. See, there's no such thing as Fuller's mathematics. Mathematics is mathematics. 1 and 1 is 2. Before Fuller got here, it'll be 1 and 1 is 2 when Fuller leaves. These are universal laws. What we need from everybody, not just from Neely Fuller, we need a code. And what is a code? Since I think if I understand what you're saying, a code is something that works every time you do it. Like 1 and 1 is 2 works every time you add it up. If you add 1 with 1, you're going to get 2 every time. You're not going to get something else. It just doesn't work like that. That's mathematics. Otherwise, if that didn't happen, you couldn't get to the moon and back. See, 1 and 1 is 2. These are universal laws. So you don't tap into anything that Neely Fuller says. I always tell people, hey, don't believe nothing Neely Fuller says. Neely Fuller makes mistakes. You don't ever want to make a mistake ever again in life if you can avoid it. But all people make mistakes, including Neely Fuller. But math is exact. All right? It's either or. There's no such thing as in between. You either went to the moon and got back or you didn't. And you better have a whole lot of math before you even decide that you're going. Because if you get 1 digit out of place, 1 0 in your calculation is out of place, everything is down the drain. And so we need a code that is just that exact. Meaning what? What is a code? I'm going to repeat it again. When you do it, it works. That's it. If it doesn't work, it ain't code. You know, when a plumber comes in and say, hey, you better believe when you turn your water on, you ain't going to get water today. Because this plumbing system is not up to code. And I'll tell you, in apartment number 36, you're not going to get no water if you turn that faucet on. Because I went down and checked all those pipes. They're not up to code. It ain't enough pressure to get it up to apartment number 36 because the mathematics says it ain't enough pressure. And mathematics tells you everything And the way I figured, according to my figures, according to the figures, not my figures, according to the math, there's no way that you're going to get enough pressure to go through these pipes and get to apartment 36. And if you don't believe it, run up to number 36 and turn the water on and see if you get water. Okay? Now, he's either lying or telling the truth. So to find out whether or not the code that he has laid out is true, all you have to do is run up to apartment 36 and turn the water on. If you don't get water, then that proves that what he said was true. Now, it's the code. Counter-racist code, counter-racist science is the same thing. If you do it, it's supposed to work. If you don't do it, or rather, if you do it and it doesn't work, it ain't supposed to be code, because it's not code. Mathematics always works. Always. It never fails. It always works, because whatever created the universe did it in a mathematical way. We give a term to it called mathematics. You can call it by any name. But all it means is, when you do it, it works.
Yes, sir. TalkTamitRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTamitRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Our topic is racial apartheid, and we had Mr. Fuller just give a definition according to the compensatory definition, and that's in the book that we're going to suggest that you purchase. And Mr. Fuller, this is the time that we talk about your book, so that was a good segue into that. Go ahead and speak to your book and also the word guide.
Well, I just read from the word guide, so you got an idea of what that structure is in the word guide, how to use words. And that word that I just used was apartheid, because somebody mentioned that. So, Mr. Bobby, the host here on this program, he turned to it, because he has a copy of the book, and then I turned to mine, and sure enough, I had that in there. The word guide doesn't have all of the English words. It doesn't even have but a sampling of them, really. It's a very thick book, but it only has a sample of words, because I talk about in depth in some words, how to use them, how not to use them, and I try to give reasons why. And the reasons why, I'll say, use this word, then I'll try to give a reason why. Because anytime you say don't do something, or do something, you should give a reason why. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's supposed to be something, if it's codified, that when you do it this way, it will work. If you use it, it will work. Okay? Well, it should work. But I can't guarantee this. I'm feeling my way. I have to be honest with people about that. Why? So far, white supremacy is still here. So, do I have the solution to solving the problem of racism through my books? I can't say that. I hope that I have something that will lead to it. But really, I set out to try to write a volume called the Counter-Racist Codified Guide that will help individuals to think, speak, and act in such a manner that racism will be replaced with a better system. And what would be a better system than racism? Because racism does accomplish some things. When it comes to material gain, racism is proven to be one of the most efficient systems to getting things done that the world has ever seen. So, if we look at racism in that limited way, getting things done, racism, white supremacy, is the thing that everybody should say, hey, this is great, let's keep it. But it has a huge flaw right from the beginning, right out of the gate. What is that flaw? That overrides the material gain. That's more important than the material gain. And that is what? It is designed to mistreat people of color. That's what the huge flaw is. It's designed to deliberately do that. But it gets a lot of things done. When a system of justice will do the same thing, get things done theoretically with without mistreating anybody. Now, it's never been done, but just because something has never been done doesn't say it can't be done. Now, that's a codified premise. Justice has never existed in recorded history. So a lot of people say justice can never be achieved. You can't have a system of anything among people without mistreating somebody. Now, I don't believe that. I believe if you just slow down and do the math, you can figure out how to get things done, just like the system of white supremacy does, without mistreating anyone. Not one person will be mistreated and get the same things done. Now, it might be a little slower to get there on account of you got a system that's designed to poison everybody and poison everybody's mind. Now, you can get this textbook that talks about all of this and what an individual can do about it by going to producejustice.com. Producejustice.com. And like the caller said a while ago, how do I know that by people reading my book? So far, white supremacy is still here. Well, I don't know. See, but we got to keep trying. Now, one thing that is mathematical, and that is the people who first start trying to make a vehicle that could carry people into the air, they didn't do very well at it. I mean, they wrote down a whole bunch of stuff on a thing called blueprints and whatnot, and they came out and tried to put all that stuff that they had on those blueprints together, like they tried to put wings on a bicycle, and they tried to take off, and it didn't work very well. And then they put wings on a bigger tricycle or something, all right, and made the wings bigger, and then put a moon on it and whatnot. And it took off for a little while, but it didn't go very far before they had a huge mishap, or two or three dozen. But they kept doing what? Trying. And that's what building a code is about. The white supremacists, when they built the white supremacist code, it probably didn't work when they ran some trial runs, but they kept at it. See, that's the mathematics of getting things done. You have to keep at it. And finally, you might come up with something if you just keep at it. Be persistent. And so, counter-racist codification, I tried to put it in this book that you can get by going to producejustice.com.
All righty. producejustice.com to get the book. Let's go to the phone lines. Okay, caller, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Hello, sir?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah, Dr. Fuller, I hear a lot of black people say that there's going to be a race war. And I think about what you would say in the comment to that, and what you probably would say is that the white supremacists, they don't have a need to go to war with black people because we've already been captured. We were captured over 400 years ago. And what is your comment to that?
We were captured in the beginning of the system of white supremacy, and I have no record of when that began. It's argumentative, but I don't participate in arguments, so I try not to. But some people say 400 years, some people say 600 years, some people say at least 2,000 years. But you go back and you look at all of the records of the Roman Empire, all of the history of the Roman Empire, you see some black people in Rome. And they were what? Slaves.
Yeah.
They were taking the move to the Colosseum. So when you talk about white supremacy, it may not have even started then. It may have started way before then. Okay? So I say I don't know. But now, if you're talking about war, you're correct. War was declared against non-white people by the white supremacists before anybody walking around on this planet now was even thought about being here. So this has been a long-running show. And that war was, up to this point, won. Now the reason I say up to this point, and that the war isn't over, even though all of the non-white people come under the foot of racist man and racist woman, the white supremacists, collectively, all, without exception, on the planet Earth, right this minute in war has already, that part of the war has already been completed. I think that's the best term to use. That part of the war has been completed. Now, why do I say the war isn't over, even though all black people are in captivity, all without exception? There's no black person walking the face of this earth who is not subject to the system of white supremacy. And if anybody finds one, I want to know where that person is and who it is. And I want to see how they did it. Because that's impossible. In a system of white supremacy, it means all. It doesn't mean some black people are subject to the dictates of somebody white and being mistreated by that person who is white. It means all, either directly or indirectly, including all of the non-white people, all of the black people who have never even seen a white person, never even heard of a white person. They still come under the system of white supremacy. So that part of the war has been completed. Now, I didn't say the war is over. Why? Because you have things like this program right now, talking about it, talking about resistance. As long as you have people who are talking about resistance, it ain't over. All right? Because from talk will come action. You can't talk about things without having...
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Fuller, go ahead.
Without having the urge to act. That's just, people usually act on what they're talking about. Somebody right now, I'll just give an example. Some black person, 16 years old right now, has got a couple of 9mm lying on the table before them. They keep picking them up and looking at them, loading them and unloading them, pulling back the slide. Oh boy, I can kill me somebody. All right? You let that 16-year-old keep doing that. You know what's going to happen? They are going to kill somebody. Now that's a guarantee. You let them just keep doing that. Keep playing with that gun. Hey, I got to use this thing. I'm just sitting here playing with it. I got to go out and make this thing, I got to see how, what it looks like to see somebody fall down when I point this thing at him and pull the trigger. I got to see that happening. All right? See, whatever you're thinking about, you keep thinking about it. You can fool around and do it. Now, it's the same way with practicing racism, and it's the same way with practicing getting rid of racism. You keep thinking about it. And the books that I have written are designed, and the program that I'm on now, hopefully, is designed to keep us thinking about it so we'll act on what we're thinking about. But do it in a way that will be constructive and get the job done.
Alrighty. We don't have a chance to get to this particular email, but I will ask a question about it, and let's see if, and we will probably have to go into next week. But Mr. Fuller, I was asked to ask you about, let's see, please ask Mr. Fuller whether his plan for the breaking down of white supremacy racism based on Plato's definition of human freedom, which accordingly can be realized when man is totally rational, that is, when reason rules compassion. What do you think about that, Mr. Fuller? And have you heard of Plato's definition of human freedom?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I've read a little bit of Plato, but if I read that, I don't remember that I read it. So somebody can tell me, what did he say?
Yeah, that would be my assignment for next week to look at what is that. I did look at a little bit of it, but it was a little confusing to me. But I'll try to make that a point to find out what Gigi was asking here. Whether your plan for breaking down the white supremacy racism is based on Plato's definition of human freedom, which accordingly can be only realized when man is totally rational. Now, I know you know what rational means, and that is when reason rules passion. Reason rules passion.
Well, now, since he asked the question, and this is the question and answer program, kicking around and see where they go. What did Neely Fuller put in his textbook for victims of white supremacy in the Word Guide?
And that's
the definition of freedom.
Right, and that's what we will have to do next week because the music means we're out of time. Thank you for listening. Thank you, TalkTimeAtRadio.com. Thank you, listeners. Talk Time at Radio, radio the way it should be heard. We'll see you next week. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTimeAtRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com.